What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Ryan, this is Auto Detour. If you're new to the channel, behind me here is my 2003 Ford F150. As you can probably tell, it does have a single turbo on it on the stock motor. Right now we're running about 10 PSI, so I'm guessing we're pushing probably 430 horsepower to the wheel. So there's three things that I kind of want to get done today, and they're those kind of like detail type things that you don't really think about when you're doing stuff like this to the truck. Kind of stuff that's not really supposed to be done, and you kind of have to do your best to make it work. So in today's video, we're going to go over those three things. Thank you guys for joining me tonight. Let's jump right into it. All right, so as most of you guys may know, I am running the stock muffler and the stock 2.5-inch piping. So the downpipe here is going down into the fender here. And what you can't see is behind this piping, this is actually a Y. It splits off into 2.5, which goes over the frame rail to the stock muffler. Then I have a boost actuated cutout back here that opens up automatically when it gets to roughly 4 to 5 PSI boost. But in order for it to do that, we have to actually build boost. And as you can imagine, the stock muffler and the 2.5-inch piping is a bit restrictive and kind of slows us down from building boost real rapidly. So the way I had it set up before, where the PCV valve would normally hook up, is this heated port right here, right into the manifold. That's where I had the boost actuated cutout hooked up to before. And just now tonight, I recapped that off. So the issue with that, and what I'm trying to accomplish here, and this was actually Eric's idea from Racing Ram Fam. He's just full of good ideas. The issue with that is I have to pressurize all of the intercooler piping, the intercooler and the charge pipe and the intake manifold. So all that has to get pressurized before it sends enough pressure down to the boost actuated cutout to have it open. So what Eric recommended is to try to get it to open a little bit sooner and a little bit quicker, is have it pull directly off the feed line from the turbo here. So this line runs up here to this T. It tees off. One end goes into the boost controller here for the top side of the wastegate. The other end goes into the bottom side of the wastegate. And then what I've done is I teed into it over here so that not only does it go into the bottom side of the wastegate, but it also goes down to the boost actuated cutout. So as soon as the turbo right here reaches 4 to 5 PSI, that cutout will now open. What's really hard to relay through video is, first gear isn't really your best boost building gear, so I need all the help I can get to get the boost to open up that cutout. So if we can do that a little bit sooner and a little bit quicker, that'll help us get that exhaust opened up so we can build boost faster. The second thing I want to go over tonight is the air conditioning. So I have AC. I don't know if you can even see it down there, but I was able to move the air conditioning canister just enough to miss the downpipe so I could keep my AC. The AC lines are running right along the side of the battery here. And I have it kind of just zip tied over so it doesn't touch the downpipe, even though it's ceramic coated and wrapped, heat wrapped. Just nice to have a little air gap in there. So the issue is when you go to charge your AC again, is I have the high side here for the charging the AC, and the low side comes right off. I'm gonna see if I can stuff you guys down there with the camera here. So the low side comes off the canister right here, but it aims directly at the downpipe. So because of that, it's nearly impossible for a shop to get their little fittings on there for their AC charging machine, because they have to have, this much room to be able to slide the fitting on there. And so I thought for a while there that we weren't going to be able to charge the AC system because, well, you can't take the downpipe off because the truck has to be running, or you at least have to start it and run it a little bit while you're charging the AC system, and you don't want to be shooting the exhaust straight out of the turbo straight at my wiring harness there. So again, shout out to Racing Ram Fam. He is a mechanic by trade, so I brought the truck down to him. He was generous enough to take his lunch break to help me figure out how the heck we were going to recharge the AC. So with the liberal use of a pry bar and Eric's ability to kind of just think outside the box on all stuff like this, I was able to pry the canister over just far enough, and Eric was able to just barely sneak their AC recharge fitting on there. So huge thank you again to him. And now the truck has ice cold AC again. Apparently when we had the system apart and put it back together, we didn't manage to introduce any leaks into the system. So on these hot 90 plus humid Minnesota days, I'm so thankful to have my air conditioning back. Originally what I thought I was going to have to do is move the wiring harness out of the way. The little bracket right here, this is the stock bracket that usually holds the wiring harness stuff here down below, but the downpipe would hit it. So I took the front side of the bracket off and we moved all the wiring harness up here. But I took this bracket out thinking that that would help me move that AC canister. It didn't really help. But so I just finished getting all that put back together. So those are two of the kind of small things you don't really think about when doing something like this. I think I have a hair on my mouth. So the third thing I want to accomplish tonight is I'm still having issues with the upper radiator hose that came with the kit. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hose clamps on it, which leaves lots of room for leaks. And I keep having a leak come back because the one you can't see under the intake pipe here, it keeps coming loose. Like these clamps just really suck. And so as you can see, this upper radiator hose has this crazy drop in it here, which isn't really necessary because this kit was made for a 4.6, which would have brought the turbo down lower, where you really would have had to have that drop for it to go under the turbo. In this case, there's enough of a drop. See if we can't sneak the stock upper radiator hose back in there. And we might, it looks like we just might be able to do it. So we'll find out. Let's pull the intake tube off and see if we can't swap out this upper radiator hose. So now that we have the intake pipe out of the way, you can see how just needlessly complicated this upper radiator hose, and this is either this one, I think it's this one right here, keeps coming loose, and it just drains down the bottom side of this V and drips off the bottom of it here, and I keep getting, you know, small puddles in the driveway. You guys saw before that I went through and tightened these up quite a bit, and they just keep coming loose. So probably just cheap clamps. You know, this hose may not work, but it's, you know, it's going to be pretty close. Once this drops down, you know, the 2 inches to get down there, it'll probably sneak just under the intake tube here, and it may hit this charge pipe just a little bit, but I'm so sick of dealing with the antifreeze on the ground. We'll take this off and see if we can't slip this guy on there. It did fit on there, but you know, it's pushing pretty hard against the charge pipe here. Didn't quite go as low as I wanted it to under the turbo here, so it's really going to interfere with the intake pipe. So unfortunately, I don't think that this is going to work. If only it came over here just a little bit further before it turned and went towards the thermostat housing there. So I guess not everything you try is going to work out the way you think it is. So we're going to pull this guy back off. We'll put this piping back on. Maybe switch to a universal upper radiator hose, or see if I can't find some better hose clamps for this guy so that it doesn't continue to come loose and keep leaking on me. There we go. So upper radiator hose is, or pipe I should say, is back on. All the hose clamps are tight again. Later on, I'm probably just going to go through and replace all those hose clamps with some nicer ones. I've been having issues with those. And while we're talking about clamps, I've been meaning to mention this in other videos. I'm also probably going to have to go through and replace all the nuts on the V-band clamps that came with the kit, because believe it or not, they are nylock nuts. And if you know anything about nylock nuts, they don't like heat, because the heat from the turbo will melt the nylock feature out of the nut. And so I've been having somewhat of issues of the V-band clamps coming loose and the piping move around. So that's kind of lame, but we'll go through and replace all those with jam nuts so that we don't have that issue going forward. So in tomorrow's video, we're going to take the truck out. We're going to test out the exhaust dump now that it's hooked up differently, see how that performs. So make sure you tune into that video. Going to go out and film that tomorrow during the daylight. So right now, I'm actually going to back the truck out, get the hose out, and rinse off all the antifreeze off of everything down here so it's not a sticky mess. I don't want my blow-off valve down there getting sticky. We don't need that sticking in either open or closed position, because that it's kind of important. So for those of you that are into the details of this build, this video is for you, and I appreciate you guys watching. Thank you for sticking around to the end of the video. I'll shoot a little bit of video as I'm pulling the truck out of the garage. Always fun to see it fire up without the intake tube on, so that you can see the turbine spin on the turbo. So thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great night. I'll talk to you next time.